Good evening and welcome to a special edition of APTN National News. I'm Chris Nachkate. Thank you for joining us. We'll be taking a look back at some of our coverage of National Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations across the country and some other festive reports we did throughout the year. We'll begin with Fraser Needham in Ottawa, where there were a couple of events in the city as part of National Indigenous Peoples Day.
Roughly 21 kilometers southwest of downtown Ottawa is the home of Medawaki Farm. The farm is hosting its annual 3-day summer solstice festival this weekend with a number of activities going on. CEO Trina Simard says they expect tens of thousands of guests to make the trip to the farm, and there will be something for everyone.
So I think for our Indigenous community, it's such an important time just to have this gathering and be able to come together. But we welcome 30,000 visitors and, from all walks of life. And we really look forward to the opportunity just to share and enrich their understanding of Indigenous people and cultures.
Closer to downtown is Ottawa's Sandy Hill area. The local Inuit community is hosting its own National Indigenous Peoples Day celebration with traditional foods, art, and music. Eleanor Partridge of Tuunasuvigat Inuit says the city's sizable Inuit community has a number of reasons to celebrate at Aniputaguk Park.
We wanted to have kind of like a celebration just for them, including everyone else, of course. And we wanted to have it in this location because of the significance of Aniputaguk as an Inuit artist. Also, it is close to where most Inuit live in Ottawa.
Joey Nakulak is an artist originally from Nunavut who now makes his home in Ottawa. He says the Indigenous Peoples Day event allows the local Inuit community to showcase its diversity.
Yeah, we're all from the northern community, but we all have slight difference in the things we do. Our daily livings are slightly different. A lot of the tools we do and the creatures we hunt, they're all the same, but they're all slightly different. They all have their own unique qualities as a community.
Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
There was an abundance of pride this year as communities celebrated National Indigenous Peoples Day north of 60. Our reporter Charlotte Moore-Jacobs takes us to Treaty 8 territory for the sights and sounds of the festivities.
Shirt for him, and I realized how big he was.
It's a celebration you don't want to miss. The annual fish fry at the Sambake Civic Plaza in downtown Yellowknife, hosted by the North Slave Métis Alliance. And it's not only the delicious local whitefish that draws in large crowds. There's vendors and performers all afternoon showcasing their culture and history.
It has not been a linear point from this city's founding in 1930.
Garrett Cochran, Deputy Mayor of Yellowknife and proud member of Local 66 Yellowknife Métis, says today is a day to honor the history and resilience of Indigenous people.
I would describe this as a celebration of the Indigenous culture, a celebration of where we've come from as Indigenous people, being First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, and a celebration of what we can achieve in the future. This is the beginning point of the rest of this century. From 2024, we're on the 90th year of Yellowknife's history here. We're entering into the 100th in just a decade here. And where we'd like to go for the next stage here is not only just within reconciliation, but a united peoples.
Local leaders are also taking the opportunity to speak towards challenges Northern Indigenous communities face.
My great-great-great-grandfather, Chief Emil Dragis, on my father's side, signed the treaty in Fort Resolution on July 25th, 1900. They understood to be peace and friendship treaty that did not surrender ownership or control over our traditional territory.
We also strongly believe that no Indigenous people should be left behind by any government merely because of an outdated policy or any administrative convenience. We will need help to replace our lost jobs with the oncoming mine closures, to nuance, and lost hopes with new dreams for the future for all of our communities of Indigenous peoples.
Across the NWT, Dene Métis and Inuvialuit communities are celebrating National Indigenous Peoples Day with feasts, canoe races, traditional games, and ceremonies. Charlotte Moore-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
To the East Coast now, where National Indigenous Peoples Day was celebrated in a number of different ways. Among the Mi'kmaq in Nova Scotia, June 21st is recognized as Freedom Day, the day children left the Shubenacadie Residential School for summer vacation. Angel Moore brings us the story.
This is a traditional Mi'kmaq game called Waltez. Each player flips the 6 disc-shaped dice. All 6 facing up is worth 5 points. Waltez was once banned by the church. Playing the game is part of the festivities at this year's annual Freedom Day at Shubenacadie, Nova Scotia. But the biggest part of the Freedom Day is the walk. Benjamin Lafford is from the Eskazoni First Nation. He attends every year.
It's important to me to take this walk for my children and my grandchildren. It's important for me to raise the awareness for our survivors as the Indian Residential School survivors.
This is the 4th annual Freedom Day. It was the day the children left the Shubenacadie Residential School for the summer. Cassidy Gallant is one of the volunteers to organize this year's event. She is from the Elsipogtog First Nation in New Brunswick. Gallant walks for her great-grandmother.
It felt right. It felt where I was supposed to be. This is where my, without my great-grandmother, I wouldn't be here. And I personally like to celebrate this day in walking home for her and walking the path that she did and being able to say that I'm here for her.
Every year, survivors, families, and supporters retrace the steps taken by the children over 1 kilometer from the site of the residential school to the train station, where they would wait for the train to take home. The Shubenacadie Residential School was the only school for the Atlantic region. Over 1,000 children attended from 1930 to 1967. Joey Brooks also helped organize the event.
So when we do this, this is in commemoration to all the survivors that were at the school, that had passed away over the time, and to raise continual awareness that we want the Indigenous children to be returned home.
For school survivor Doreen Bernard, it's about education.
Wherever events are taking place, it's an honor to the Indigenous people, and whether they focus on the survivors, like we do here, or they have Maui or celebrate our culture in any way, it's really important to educate people about who we are. Yes.
About 200 people attended Freedom Day, and Lafford says he will be at next year's event.
Oh, I feel real good. That's like a freedom. It's freedom for me. Nobody had to tell me to go back to residential school. Because nobody don't tell me what to do anymore.
Angel Moore, APTN, Shubenacadie, Nova Scotia.
Rapper Snoop Dogg was honored by the Indigenous community earlier this year. That story and more when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Saskatchewan now, where a sea of orange shirts rolled over Saskatoon's Victoria Park for National Indigenous Peoples Day. This year, Saskatoon hosted its 6th annual Rock Your Roots Walk for Reconciliation. The walk honors those who survived residential schools by visiting landmarks that showcase the continuing work on reconciliation. Although the walk is held annually on National Indigenous Peoples Day, a virtual map is available on the City of Saskatoon's website to allow people to walk the self-guided tour any day of the year. And over in Winnipeg, hip-hop artist Snoop Dogg was on his Cali in Canada tour and rolled down the streets of Winnipeg. One woman from Pimicikamak Cree Nation got an opportunity for her beating to be gifted to the big boss dog himself. With more, here's T.R. Wheatley.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, I love how you did that.
Brandy Boubier is seeing this custom artwork piece in person for the first time.
A dear friend of mine, she was going to make it, and she was saying, like, I'm struggling with the design, and I feel like I'm not supposed to make this. Like, maybe, like, reach out to my friend Lisa. She does deadly work too.
Despite the concert being 5 days away, Lisa Muswagan said she was up for the challenge.
When I looked at it, at first she gave me like the letters like Snoop, and it had like a leaf on it, and I was like, if this is gonna go to Snoop Dogg, it has to be like really dope.
Muswagan ended up giving it a 3D style, one that she says makes the medallion stand out in any kind of lighting.
A lot of thoughtful thinking, like, hey, the hair has to be matted, his shirt will be shiny, like the mustache and the goatee has to be matted to kind of give it the hair feel. And so it was just kind of like a lot of strategy, very thoughtful process. So Snoop Dogg, wear this with pride because it comes from Winnipeg, Manitoba Treaty 1.
Boubier did get the medallion to the artist. While it didn't make an appearance on the main stage, Muswagan remains grateful for the opportunity, reminiscing about her days as a teenager on the res, listening to the Dogfather.
Never would have ever thought that I'd beat something ever so awesome for that artist I was listening to then. Yeah.
Inner child is happy
my inner cross-legged Lisa is happy.
This type of beating isn't the first to make it into the hands of an artist.
When Ice Cube did his tour, somebody threw a medallion on stage, like just hoping that he would get it, and he was so appreciative. This is Indigenous land, and so we should be giving him something that's connected to Indigenous land and Indigenous people.
Connections that Muswagan says the art industry needs.
Man, I encourage all you new beaters out there, just keep going no matter what anybody says. Beating is a life skill and a life journey. There was a time where I had to take like a day off because it wasn't looking like Snoop. It looked like a random uncle. No, just kidding.
Now she's sea-walked into the bank with them C notes from this custom order made for DOGG. TR Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Love those dance moves. From Anishinaabe Animal Bingo to Cree Scrabble, a non-profit served up fun and free Indigenous language programming at the Forks Historic Site in Winnipeg. Reporter Sierra Bettens has the story.
For over 6,000 years, the intersection of the Red and Assiniboine rivers, also known as the Forks, has been a meeting place for Indigenous peoples in the prairies. Now, Shyla Nimi and the team at Winnipeg Trails are reigniting that communal spirit by offering free Indigenous language programming on site.
It's very important for us to honor that history by gathering, coming together to share, and then just creating those relations with each other, because that's how it's always been at the Forks.
Throughout the summer, Indigenous and non-Indigenous visitors alike can drop by the Forks for free language programming in Cree and Anishinaabe. Nimi is the organization's Indigenous language coordinator. She began learning Anishinaabe a few years ago. She studied the basics by taking classes at a local college and learning from fluent speakers over dinner.
So I've picked up some words here and there with my family. Like you'd hear words like ambe, like come here, or like beka, slow down. You'd hear like small words, but I never really knew the language. My family lived pretty far away from me. And then once I got the position here as Indigenous language coordinator, I was able to learn it more.
On Wednesday evenings, participants get a full Anishinaabe immersion experience. Thursdays are dedicated to beginners. And on Friday, the organization hosts a game night where participants can play Anishinaabe Animal Bingo or try their hand at Scrabble in one of the languages.
So we call the animals in Anishinaabe, and people will have to figure out which animal it is by using their cheat sheet. And then slowly you'll start to see them recognize what the words mean.
Focusing on games and informal conversation, rather than taking a traditional classroom approach to learning, was intentional.
It makes it less scary and intimidating. We're not a classroom. We're not trying to be a classroom. We are more focused on community. We want people to come together.
The Indigenous language programming runs throughout the summer at the Forks in Winnipeg. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
February is the Eagle Moon.
We have Anishinaabe artist Lucia LaFord up next, who will talk about why she is following in her father's footsteps. We're back in less than 3 minutes. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. A group of filmmakers in Winnipeg is telling Indigenous stories through an Indigenous lens. They meet to motivate one another as they find ways to turn oral history into feature films. With more, here's T.R. Wheatley.
Take two! Action.
The Winnipeg Indigenous Filmmakers Collective has been around for over a decade. It started as a handful of people hoping to help one another get a break in a tough industry.
We were being put in, circumstances that weren't the greatest.
But in recent years, its director Amanda Kinjerski, who's Saulteaux and Métis, says a surge in funding dollars through arts and culture grants has raised the stakes and its membership to well over 100 people. Now many are leading productions through an Indigenous lens from start to finish.
So that we can make sure there's authenticity, that there's care that's happening in this industry, because there's so much money going to Indigenous stories that people are taking and maybe not thinking about how do we take care of others and make sure we're telling stories in a good way. My goal was 50 for the year, 50 short films for the year, and we're on track.
On this August evening, this group of film enthusiasts are discussing the next big hit. Rachel Bolio's been here since the beginning.
We bring people in to be able to experiment and learn and see what they like, what they're capable of.
They meet monthly to help one another with everything from acting tips to script writing, as well as designing sets to planning and budgeting a film from start to finish.
We're able to tell our stories, and now we're working towards being in charge of what these budgets are going to look like for the films, what the stories are, and making sure we're actually telling them in a good way.
That can have a profound impact on the spirit within us.
Oja Jack is Bolio's first major film. She's directed and produced, and it will soon be seen at festivals.
Okay, so I'm proud that I have the language in there, and I'm also proud that the people that were part of it, 80% filmmakers were Indigenous on set. So having a budget from the Indigenous Screen Office to be able to hire Indigenous filmmakers and Indigenous actors, and just to tell an authentic Indigenous story.
Telling Indigenous stories is also something that 20-year-old Kiera Barrett is passionate about. The Norrie House Cree Nation member found this group on social media.
Everyone was super nice and easy to talk to.
As the only visible Indigenous person in her studies at CMU College of Makeup, Art and Design in Toronto, she was grateful to find this group when she moved to Winnipeg.
Going from no people to there being a whole collective of Indigenous people also doing what I love, it was just exciting, and it was just made me happy and proud, I guess.
Barrett also credits on-the-job training here for helping her become lead makeup artist for a couple of fashion shows. Training that Kinjerski says not only helps build confidence, but helps prepare people like Barrett for the constant change within the industry.
We do traditional storytelling. We do experimental storytelling. We have a film incubator coming up where we're going to do a bunch of one-take Super 8s. We're going to do cameraless films.
Experimenting in more ways than one.
But where's your gun in Kujinikars?
Panic! Bingo!
But always mixing a little bit of culture and Nietzsche humor every step of the way. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Earlier this year, a Yukon artist created a thought-provoking piece showcasing the marine casualties of the Eagle gold mine disaster last summer. Lara Bode is a member of the Little Salmon Carmacks First Nation and a third-year student at the Emily Carr University of Art and Design in Vancouver. As part of an assignment, she illustrated the 68 dead fish that were discovered in a creek near Victoria Gold's Eagle Mine site near Mayo, Yukon. The fish died as a result of a discharge of cyanide-contaminated water. Earlier this summer, an equipment failure caused a landslide at the mine site, spilling millions of tons of cyanide-laced rock into the environment. The assignment took Bode about 3 weeks to complete.
It's kind of taking away the separation of just hearing a number and actually seeing it. And then also, obviously the amount of labor I put into this is a huge part of what it is. So I think it's just really forcing a viewer to confront realities of mining accidents,
And finally tonight, an Anishinaabe artist brought together her love for woodland style art and teach others to explore their Indigenous heritage. Lucia LaFord is also following in the footsteps of her father, who is well known in the world of woodland-style art. APTN's Mike McDonald reports.
This mural is one of several public art displays in the city of Sault Ste. Marie designed by local artist Lucia Laforde. For the next several weeks, she will be walking this group of students from St. Mary's High School through the process of creating their own.
For me, the mural, specifically from an Indigenous context, is not just art for art's sake, but art for teaching and learning and growing. And also as an Indigenous artist, I want to take up space the way that we haven't been able to take up space before.
Laforde is the daughter of renowned woodland-style artist John Laforde, who passed away in 2021.
Just before he passed, we were teaching together at the university, and he passed right in the middle of the course, and you just have this moment of, oh my gosh, the person that I learned everything from is gone. How am I going to continue teaching? And I never thought about that before, and then I realized, like, my father's still with me, and I believe in the Anishinaabe worldview that, you know, he's there with our ancestors, and so I just keep teaching because I know that he loved teaching and he instilled that love of sharing everything that we love with everybody else.
Laforde will be taking a break to work on another mural project at the Grand Valley Institution for Women in Southern Ontario.
For this one, I'll be doing something very similar, but going in, doing workshops on woodland style art, which also include cultural teaching. So I can't teach about woodland style art if I don't teach about who we are as Anishinaabe and as Indigenous people. So, you know, we'll be drumming, we'll be smudging, we'll be talking about the medicines, we'll be talking about, you know, intergenerational healing, intergenerational trauma, because you have to talk about all those things. And while we're doing all that, we're going to be painting a mural as well.
Asked why she chose to do a mural project at a prison, Laforde says she's had her own struggles.
I've dealt with my own challenges of addiction, mental health, and other issues in my life. And so I know that being Indigenous means that we go through trauma, and I know that a lot of those women and people that are in there have gone through trauma, and that there's a reason why there's a more amount of us as Indigenous people in correctional facilities, and we're overrepresented in so many other things.
Mike McDonald, APTN National News, Sault Ste. Marie.
And that's your special edition of APTN National News. We wish you all a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and hope you're all enjoying your time off with family. And for those who are unable to be with family, make sure you give your loved ones a call. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again. Exe.